Welcome to another triathlon podcast brought to you by Mana Apparel. This week, we are going to jump into talking about the race that everyone is talking about, which is crazy to see that there is a world championship going on in December of this year. It feels like this season has been never ending, but it is all coming together for the final big race of the year with the 70.3 World Championships. And we will dive into who's racing, what it means for the Ironman Pro Series, of course, talk about our usual segments with What the F, social media post, and now our Triathlon Tea segment as well. But first, let's jump on. I am joined by Josh this week. Josh, how are you doing? What's going on in your world?
Happy Monday of final race of the season.
Man, it's been a long season.
Yeah. I'm in my off season, so I'm enjoying that, and it's actually been quite the off season so far. I just realized today I had a walk walk protocol for 30 minutes because I haven't run in 17 days. So I hadn't actually realized how long it had been. But a lot of swimming, a lot of biking, as we've talked the last few episodes. And today was my first dibs back into some running, and got 3 miles in 30 minutes. So took it easy, but felt good. And we'll see how it responds tomorrow. That's kind of the true test. But the Achilles were kind of mostly 99% pain-free. I got to do a little bit more warming up. I think that's what I realized too. Because as soon as I get on the tread and get in a half mile or a mile or so, everything's clear and good to go. Just a little bit more of a better warm up, and I should be good and really making sure I'm stretched. I'm an old man, so I got to take care of these things these days. But the strength was there. I was very surprised that the legs and the glutes and the adductors, everything kind of felt strong. And a lot of that's just from the biking and the strength work and even the swimming with the core and everything. So very happy with that in the last few weeks without running, and looking forward to the rest of the week. I got a big weekend at Peloton coming up with like 4 or 5 classes and long rides. Yeah, just 4 or 5 classes.
What?
75-minute ride with Mr. Wilpers, then a 60-minute run with Bex. And both of those classes, I booked the entire studios. 39 people that I'm bringing on the bikes, and then 16 people on the treadmills to celebrate everyone who did marathons this fall. So it'll be a really cool class and a really cool weekend, and just kind of community building and seeing people I haven't seen in a while. And then it's going to be focus on the spring races and really into no more deviating from the coach's plan. But this is my final week out of telling her what I have to do.
It'll be fun to get everyone together, though. So much of this training we do on our own by ourselves. I know I do 99.9% by myself. So there's just something different when you have that energy of everyone around you, and just a little bit easier to suffer when the people around you are suffering too.
Exactly. And it's a long day too. I was like 75-minute ride at 7 a.m. and then a 60-minute run at 10 a.m. But you're in there and it's over before you know it when you're running with all these other people and riding with all these other people, and the coach is going nuts. We get to pick the music for the ride with Wilpers on his Saturday morning ride, and in our community, because we got the whole studio, the guy who does all of the song selections for him every Saturday let me pick the theme, and we went with Jock Jam. So it's going to be pretty lively for 75 minutes of some music you probably haven't heard in a while.
Oh, that'll be a blast. Music definitely sets the tone. That's going to be so much fun. Good to hear that at least your first run went back, and hopefully everything holds up for the weekend so you can enjoy it and not be stressing.
I'm excited and try and figure out what time we got to watch Taupo. So excited to finally end the season and then see some good racing. And we got 2 different days too, right? So I think the women are Friday like afternoon our time, somewhere in there in the US, and then the men on Saturday. So in the US, obviously Saturday, Sunday over there. Good for them to have their 2 days, and it seems like that's going to be the theme going forward. I've seen a lot of people posting stories and posts, and the ladies want their own day in Kona. So the debates and the politics have already started, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's going to be so good to watch. I've got a Christmas party I have to go to. I'm wondering if I can sneak off to try to watch the end of the races there to see what happens.
Yeah, you and I both are going to have to figure this one out. Friday I've got covered, but maybe I'll make Janine drive down to New York. But Saturday is going to be a little different. Yeah. So how's your Ironman build going?
Yeah, definitely.
In between saving cats and all of the other stuff that you're doing, baking and winning like contests on DLC or whatever channels.
Man, that was a random adventure for sure. Yeah, I had my son's birthday this weekend and I bake once a year and go all like Pinterest on it and spend ridiculous amount of times making the cake. And then I'm totally burnt out on baking until his birthday comes around the following year. So it's my once a year adventure. That was, I think it took me like 6 hours to do this like game controller cake. One of those, is it cake? Is it
You
not
pulled
cake?
it off. I mean, it was television worthy, I thought.
Man, ordeal.
Fondant's not easy.
That was definitely adventure. I was more like mentally fatigued for my run afterwards. So like, oh my God, just drained from trying to make this thing work. So that mental stress does, got it done, got the training done. Had, like you said, a random adventure where there was a cat stuck in my tree. So got to do some tree climbing, trying to get a bucket up to the cat to try to like lower it down in that. And after being in that tree for almost a day and a half, the cat decided to ignore the bucket altogether and the whole setup and just somehow got down out of the tree by itself. So you're just chilling up there for almost 2 days, just cause in the
Something
middle
must
of the
have
tree.
spooked it, and it didn't feel comfortable to come down until it's like, all right, screw this lady, I'm out of here.
These people are going to keep bugging me, so I got to get it. No, it's an adventure. But yeah, training's been good. It's been doing things differently this year. I've mentioned it before, just tons of more heat training and trying to get those adaptations a little bit faster. And I'm doing Ironman Taiwan and really have no idea what to expect. There's no course up yet, so I don't know what that looks like. They say the temperatures will be in the 20s, but I was looking at some past race reports where it's like 34, which is, I think, approaching 100. So definitely banking on being prepared for anything with lots of hills, lots of heat, lots of crazy stuff. But this last week was more of a kind of recovery week-ish. Didn't do any crazy hills. Didn't do any insane heat. Well, okay, did some heat training, but nothing crazy like I was doing before. My long run was flat, not overdressed, just cruise. And
Flat-ish. I thought I saw some incline in there too.
I mean, it was plus minus 2%, which feels at this point after the 15%.
Right.
Flat.
Well, when 2% is feeling flat, then all right, you're in a good mode.
Yeah. I don't often look at my workouts ahead, and I looked at my run tomorrow. I've got a double run day. And the first run has a lot more time at that 10 to 15% grade. So we will overdressed while wearing lots of layers. So we'll see how that goes there. But it's definitely been interesting. After doing this sport for so long, it's nice to just change up the stimulus a little bit, see what works, what doesn't. Really, the goal with Ironman Taiwan is to just tick the box, get that Kona spot, and then really try to build and be fit for Kona. So far, everything's on track. Nothing's hurting. So that's always a good sign. Swimming slowly, but I'm swimming and I should be able to make it. Well, still feels like long distance, but I'll be able to make it through the swim and get into the parts that I like a lot more.
Yeah, no, it's our pictures of us coming out of the water or some of the, like, there, it could be like the worst moment because you're still trying to catch yourself, or it could be the greatest picture of the day because you're so relieved that, like, I get to go ride a bike now.
Now I get to start chasing people down instead of feeling like a floundering fish just trying to survive. Oh, yeah. Although I'm gonna have to take my my pretty Devour wetsuit to the pool to test it out there because it is not going to be warm enough in Canada to swim outside before April. That's not happening.
Nah, just make sure you rinse it. I've swam with mine in the pool a couple of times. I would just make sure you rinse it there. I do it just to stretch it out and get used to the shoulders. And that Ford 3.0 is a little tighter than I think most suits that you might have been wearing previously. Man, it's fast, that's for sure. So enjoy that day at the pool for sure.
Oh man, that's the best. Feel like you're floating on top. I'm just honestly hoping it fits. Definitely working towards that race shape. Not there yet. So hopefully the wetsuit will fit and give it a try. I was thinking about the last Ironman I finished was 2022, maybe. Yeah. So been a little while between drinks, but I am so stoked about this one. It'll be good to get out there. And we've got a few of the Mana team members going out there. So while I'll be traveling alone, won't be alone on the other side, which just makes it so much more fun when you have some familiar.
I mean, it's going to be hard to avoid Mana at races going forward. So if you see us out there, say hi and wave. There's age group wins and everything, overall winners this weekend. And I mean, the kits are looking really fast and are fast. And now the athletes are getting faster too. So
definitely. And if anyone wants to jump into a random Ironman in Taiwan, we've got a Mana discount code. Just shoot us a message on another Triathlon podcast. We'll get you a discount into the race because It's fun to suffer with friends.
Yeah.
So we get. Well, let's roll into it. What's going on this week? How about we'll get started with our usual segments, and then we will go down into geeking out about the big race going on this weekend. Let's start off with you, Josh. You got your finger on the pulse of social media here when it comes to triathlon. What are you seeing? What should people pay attention to?
So it is race week, and it is a world championship. So with that, hand in hand means Bob Babbitt's in town, and he is. So
Of course, legend.
Babbitttville and Breakfast with Bob is in full swing as of today. It looks like he was already dropping some interviews and meeting with all the pros as they hit town, and most of them are either there or about to be there in the next day or so. So just keep your eyes out on Bob's YouTube or his social media page to find the links to get to the interviews, and always good content, always great stuff to hear. And especially now with it being December, end of the year, kind of get the pulse of some of the athletes, and some of them are there for a lot of reasons. Some of them are there just to finish out the year and help their sponsors out and do what they can, and some of them there to prove themselves. So there's a whole bunch of different stuff going on, and I think Bob's going to get that out of a lot of people. And I just want to make sure people remember to check out those interviews too. It's not all just online on social media. It's I consider YouTube part of it as well now, and his stuff's really good.
Yeah, he's got a lot more of those kind of longer form formats where it's like 20 to 30-minute interviews where you can really get some insight. And it'll be interesting to see. I know with the T100, with the grand final, looking at a lot of those interviews, you could tell who was tired and who was still kind of fired up and ready to go. And there's a surprising number of people who look tired at the T100 that are going to be out there on the weekend racing. So I'm curious to see how it goes, but we'll definitely dive more into that.
And what was it, like 4 weeks in between?
And that's, not long. And that's another month of race fatigue, trying to recover, going to another country, another continent. Man.
I mean, I would say the only one who has an advantage that has done that is probably Kyle Smith, because he's sleeping in his own bed.
I mean, that's pretty sweet. I hear he's like 15 minutes away from the start there to stay out of the limelight, sleep in your own bed, train on your usual grounds, and just drive into the race start from home. That is quite the treat for a professional athlete racing at the World Championships. Not something we see often.
But he did confirm how crappy the race surface is. I mean, they don't even hide it. They're like, yep, we're from New Zealand, and this stuff is just no fun.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of feedback from the pros, like just the speeds are so much slower at any given power than what you expect. And that can definitely mess with people's heads a lot too, when you're thinking, oh, I'm putting out good power, and then you look down at the speed and it's way slower. That's when it starts to mess with, is my power meter low or my brakes rubbing? You start to get those little seeds of doubt. And I wonder if many, not so on the pro side, but the amateurs, if that'll really start to mess with their heads, because that's never a fun feeling, especially when you're already out there going hard.
Yeah, and I mean, you definitely think it gives him an advantage too. He knows exactly what PSI to run. He knows exactly what equipment to run. There's a little bit of an advantage there. And when you can have all of those types of advantages in a race this big, where people are going to be really pushing the line, I think that's something we got to keep our eyes on when we make our predictions.
Definitely. Well, rolling on with our What the F of the week here, we have Ironman St. George is going away. The race is not going to be renewing its contract there, so we are not going to be seeing one of the kind of iconic courses out on the Ironman series. Now, this is a race that's known for being tough and hot and hard. I did this at 3 before, and then we had a number of World Championship events there. For a while there, it seemed like everyone was going to St. George a few times a year. But it is, sad to see that it's going to be going away. What do you think of that one, Josh?
Yeah, a lot of people live there now, too. I mean, there's a lot of triathletes have made it home, and I think there's going to be a lot of people petitioning to bring it back. And I think the contract was up, as you've seen with some of the races in Canada. Maybe those just kind of went away, but I don't think St. George is going to go away quietly. We know that there's one more year for sure. And I think between now and then, you're going to see a heck of a political campaign to keep it, and somebody's going to probably step up. And you got the Nick Chases of the world who are right there in ground zero trying to push this, and there's many others who love that area and and just enjoy that race and that scenery. And it's amazing. I mean, it's an epic race. People talk about like, what races do you like to do and what are your favorite races? And it's in the 70.3 world, it's always been it's always been Oceanside or St. George. And then you compare like all of US and it's like, all right, maybe you throw Lake Placid in the mix. But these are the ones that people talk about the most. And to lose one of those three or one of those top 5 races in the US, just doesn't seem like it's going to go easy. I feel like we'll probably see it again in 2026, but it's going to take a lot of work on some people's parts.
Yeah, and it's so crazy. They have even like in their town square kind of thing, a big Ironman, big like statue right in there going for it. But I'd be curious to see, I haven't looked into it, kind of what their numbers look like, because I know from an age group perspective, there's definitely been a trend towards easier courses, faster courses, and some of the harder races are having a tougher time filling up the registration just because everyone wants to get a shiny PR or go faster than they had before. When, like I said, these are the events that when you do, those are the ones you talk about, not because you had a PR, but because it was grueling and it was hard and it challenged you. And that's what a lot of us are in this sport for. Yeah. But we're definitely seeing a shift in the focus. Like 70.3 Oregon, I think it's either sold out or about to be with the faster swim and stuff. We're definitely seeing, like I said, a trend towards those faster courses overall.
I've paid my dues on those slower courses, so it's time for me to actually do one that's fast. But as long as it has a pro race, I would imagine St. George is doing pretty well in registrations because Oceanside's tough. I mean, that's a hard bike course and it sells out real quick. And I would imagine it's not a matter of it selling out. I think this is just a trend we're going to see in endurance sports overall, because everything I'm hearing from like events like TRE, the run event, and some of these other big conventions that are going right now, and just reading online in general on LinkedIn and other places, insurance costs are going through the roof. And a lot of these race directors and events that you know and love can't afford to do it. Or you look and it's like, wow, I thought I paid like $60 or $75 to go run that half marathon last year. And this year it's like $150, $200. Yeah. So I think a lot of it might have to do with that, finding the right person to step in and help out. I don't know all of the politics that go into keeping a race around in a location like that, but it's not unsuccessful. And that we for sure know. It's going to attract probably newer athletes and then the local athletes that love to just not have to get on a plane and fly. But it's going to attract newer athletes that want to tick a box saying, I did that course. And people that have been around long like you haven't done it are going to want to tick that box. And they're not chasing just the fast courses anymore. So to me, I just think that there's a whole bunch of factors that we don't know about yet. And I'm sure a lot of it will come out as people start to play those political campaigns.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see if they have a resurgence of registrations, knowing that it may be the last one there. I know a lot of people, especially with the course in Penticton, were sad to see that race go, kind of not with a bang, but just with a whimper, with it being canceled, not happening, and people finding out that it was going to be moving over to Ottawa without any prior notice. So people, I would have signed up if I knew it was going to be the last year. And unfortunately, that doesn't help the race directors' numbers to be sustainable with a lot of, I would have signed up if I knew kind of situation. So curious to see if we see a big boom in registrations, knowing that it might be the last time that it happens there. Yeah, that course just grueling. That run is just mean. You got to transit T2 and it's just up. You're like, come on.
I mean, it's hard to watch. I have not been there. I've not raced it, but I've seen it. And it looks brutal.
It is a
But it looks fun. I mean, it's got a good crowd. It's got a great atmosphere. So it's nice hard to lose a race like that.
Too. It's kind of that Kona feel where you can stay kind of close by and people are around and stuff.
Yeah.
Hopefully see it back. Well, let's move into the triathlon tee to see what's going on. And I think the most appropriate topic for this first one here is what is going on with the Norwegians at the moment. We're getting gossip and conflicting reports from sources all over the place. Josh done a bit of a dive into this. And we keep hearing, is Olaf out? Are they not being coached by him? Are they still best buddies? Or is he going to be moving on to the cycling world? Or is he still coaching them on the side? Sounds like you were doing some looking into this beforehand.
Yeah, and who knows what we can all believe right now, but it sounds like the breakup is the truth. And the fake news story that Gustav put up with the three of them on like their own little FaceTime call or whatever is just playing into everyone's infatuation with the whole situation. So I got word that Pro Tri News, who broke the story originally, is still saying that it's 100% a done deal, that they are broken up. The coaches that they listed as their new coaches are absolutely not their coaches. So that definitely was fake news. Great play on words, Kyle. But it is interesting that they are playing along with this. It kind of just goes with their MO. They're a bunch of kids just having fun at the same time. That their training is hard, if not harder than anyone too. So it'll be interesting to see who they land with. I think the two of them are a package deal. I can't imagine that they would be separating themselves. It seems like every interview here, it's Gustav and I or Christian and I. And even if they don't talk about Olaf, they're still always talking about each other. So I would imagine the two of them are going to stick together. But yeah, that was pretty funny that Gustav came up with that idea, or whoever came up with that idea to do the FaceTime story over the weekend. But hey, we'll share anything that gets posted by them because it's newsworthy and people want to see it, and maybe you don't follow them or get the information as quickly as we do. So we'll share it. And if you are a triathlon coach, maybe they're still available.
I know. And that's what I'm curious to see what they'll do, if they will start self-coaching with all the experience that they do have. It did like their made up new coach names in there, but be curious to see if they would ever move away from that Norwegian kind of method that they've been doing the last little while, considering how it didn't quite work for the Olympics, but it's been incredibly successful when it comes to the long distance. Or if they'll go back to their previous coach who helped them in the run-in the first time to the Olympics to see if
and
that
how successful they were back then.
I mean, it worked for the short course and they were doing good at the long distance too. So yeah, curious to see what they do, or if they just go off on their own and say, hey, we've learned tons over these last few years. We're just going to listen to our bodies, listen to ourselves, and see what we can pull off on our own. I think those are more the type of guys where they want to have, they're so invested and definitely know the reasons why they're doing things and why they're testing things. But they seem like the kind who are very coachable, who would want to have a coach in their corner taking the time to do the deep dive and analysis to.
Unlike Lionel, I think they could handle Jan as their coach, which that would be formidable.
That would be powerhouse.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jan particularly wants to coach that in depth ever, but that would be very cool to see that team up if you were to go.
And hard to pass up, but at the same time, here's Jan again off in the mountains skiing.
He's living his best life. What does he want to do?
He's literally a travel advertisement right now, and it's phenomenal.
Man, he's got a travel gram now, or he's just showing all the scenic epic shots with all the fun he's having there.
Yeah.
Can't see him wanting to give that up to be back in a lab working on the nitty-gritty details of everything. He may be advisor, but yeah, that doesn't sound like it is in his plan. Well, the other thing we had with our triathlon tee was not quite including a full race rundown because it's not one of the Pro Series or T100 race in here, but we had Ironman 70.3 Indian Wells happening this weekend, and it was some Olympic athlete domination this weekend. We had both on the men's and the women's side, short course athletes taking the win in there, with Claire Michelle on the women's side. Absolutely crushed it out there. And it says she's stoked to close out her career this way and share the time with her family there. So what a way to really kind of close out and make your mark at the end of the day. Then we had Ackerland finished in second, and Anna Maria Strelo across the line in third. So we'll start with hers there. It's definitely, we're seeing the Olympic distance athletes come through on the 70.3 now. It's a bit of a different race with most of the 70.3 athletes going over to the World Championships this weekend, but very cool to see her out there getting it done. And then
I would say like, look, it's at the end of her career too. So like, we've talked about a lot of people retiring and not going out at the top. I mean, she did it, and it might not have been the strongest field on paper, 60 something, whatever rating it was, but it was still a 70.3 with a lot of good athletes. And I wanted to give a shout out to our other friend, Nicole Falcaro, who we talked about early on this season in April when I traveled to Oceanside with her. And 2 days later, she's stung by a stingray and her season's pretty much washed. for something crazy. And she got out there and ran her way up to 6th place. So her best showing of the season, which is kind of cool, hopefully for her going into next year, which I thought was really neat to see. And for her to do it on the run was important too, I would imagine, because that was the one piece that she couldn't train with. So yeah, it wasn't the strongest field, but still a really fun race. Again, you like imagine losing Indian Wells too, like that end of season, fun, potentially beautiful course, and or potentially awful weather.
Sounds
like they won the weather category this year.
No, it's awesome to see, and that's definitely the way you want to go out. And then on the men's side, we had Morgan Pearson doing his 70.3 debut, and not too shabby one at that, taking the overall win after having a flat tire. So talk about getting it done on the day, and it's pretty cool. He has a pair of Olympic silver medals from Tokyo and Paris in the mixed relay. So this guy definitely knows speed at the short course. It'll be fun to see what he can do a lot more at the middle distance as he's going through here. Luckily, they had some support on course so he could get a wheel swapped out instead of so unfortunate situations we've seen throughout races this year.
And pretty quickly, too, because I think he was in the lead pack coming out of the swim, which, I mean, so he was right there in the thick of it, got to the front of the race and flatted, just not even probably over 40 miles, I think is what he said. Was able to get back in with the chase group and come in at T2 with the chase group. So we know the chase group's usually not too far back, and we know Morgan can run some crazy half marathons, which she's dabbing into and like running as standalones now as well. So he got to the lead and got a good minute gap and pulled down the race. Like he just like, all right, I got another race to get ready for. I have a half marathon to train for. Let me pull it back a little bit, and still coasted to like a minute and 45-second win over another short course Olympian hopeful Matt McElroy too. So who's already had some 70.3 podiums. He did well at Maine as well too, I think, in some other races. So, but Morgan, for only a few weeks on the TT bike and showing up in Indian Wells and having a good swim and a good bike, we know what he can do on the run if he has good days there. So
yeah, absolutely.
But we'll see. Is he another 70.3 player? I think you get the 70.3 bug and you're like, wow, this could be fun. I'm not killing myself in an hour and a half, 2 hours like they're used to.
Okay.
Let's just suffer. Let's just suffer for 3:45 now instead.
I mean, come on, not that much longer.
All right.
And then rounding out the podium, we had Lewis Woodgate in 3rd place there. But yeah, kudos to him for learning something that takes a lot of athletes a long time to learn is you don't have to win by 10 minutes. If you win by a minute, you're still the winner in there. It's cool to see he had enough of a buffer there. Unless you're doing the Ironman Pro Series, then yes, every second counts. But that's not the case here. Take the win, and she got the gap and cruising on home.
How about Bart Aernouts too? Like, I couldn't believe I saw. I was like, wait, what's he doing up front? He just won an Ironman.
Man, the way they're turning around in some of these races, just it's that long to short. That is a tough come down with an Ironman.
For a young athlete, let alone a 40-year-old.
Right? Just racing off whatever fitness they have left so they can take advantage of it before they shut it down for the year. But if you look at the season starts again, like not that long from now. We've got the WTCS series starts up in a few months, and then Oceanside will be in April.
And there's some other Pro Series races before Oceanside too. Just that Oceanside's still the first North American one this year.
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely insane. I'll be curious to see the impact of that with so little downtime between races. If athletes kind of, do the Sam Long and race through all of them from Pucon in January to Dubai at the end of the year, or if they take some downtime in between and kind of pick and choose their races, because you could really race year round, like easily. It's like January, Pucon, jump into that. You're off and rolling again.
And think about the T100 is going to add races. So, and if they had the series they wanted this year, that already meant Oman and then Dubai, whatever one, it still would have put a 2-week gap between the last race, the grand final, and 70.3 Worlds. So now you're talking, okay, well, there goes Kyle Smith's gone. Because, I mean, he didn't plan on doing the T100. He just got that wild card slot, and he's like, full send in Singapore.
May as
And
well.
then he does well in San Francisco. He's like, well, I guess I got to go to Dubai and go to all these other races now and do that too. So there's always going to be people that are in one series or the other, get an opportunity, take advantage of it, and then have to adjust their schedules and then make
Absolutely.
decisions.
It's crazy to see. Well, let's use that to jump off into our 70.3 rundown and predictions in here. It sounds like Taupo is going to be, first off, I'm probably saying it entirely wrong. I've heard Taupo,
Topa.
Topa.
Toepaw. I think that's the majority that I've seen.
Taupo. Yeah, sounds like we were talking about earlier how this course, one of the biggest challenges is going to be those road conditions. It sounds like overall it is not going to be an easy course. Do you happen to have pulled up kind of a bit of the course details in there?
I don't. I just have the standings pulled up, but we can pull up the course details. I know, obviously, with the lake swim, the Great Lake Topa, very historic area in its own right, but I don't have the bike.
Yeah, from what I'm getting all around is it's just kind of not flat all around. And like we mentioned earlier, that chip seal and the road conditions are definitely going to be something that's going to have to be reckoned with. When you have that rolling resistance is so significantly increased where you're losing a lot of speed. Like I said, I think that'll mess with a lot of age groupers, especially expecting their power output to yield a certain speed, especially if they're over in Kona early in the year where it is like smooth, beautiful pavement. It's going to be a shock to the system going to something like Topa. It just sounds weird coming out of my mouth that way.
It's not what I would expect it to be, but again, we don't live there, and I'm going to just kind of try and do it correctly. It's a rolling course. On the bike profile, you're looking at anywhere from 200 meters in altitude up to 400. So about 200 meters of climbing at any one point, and then anywhere in between there with, I believe, 2 loops. Let me just double check on that.
Yeah, it'll definitely keep people working. And if it is 2 loops, that's when we start to get into some interesting dynamics with the age groupers potentially.
Yeah, 2 loops.
Yeah. That'll be interesting because we definitely have seen some issues in the past with the age group field, especially on the slower side coming through when the pros are moving significantly faster than the age groupers that they're going to catch at that point. So hopefully we're able to see a clean race and that doesn't actually affect it at all.
Yeah, and the run's pretty flat coming off of that. So I think we all know it's going to come down to the run, especially with some of these short course guys in it too, that probably have the lead coming off the bike or near the front. And how long can they hold a half marathon as opposed to a 10K, as we've seen. So we know some of them are capable of it. It's a pretty flat run right along the lake. So pretty epic, scenic run as well.
Definitely be some good pictures that come out of it. Well, let's get started with the women's side. We'll kind of run down a few of the top names that we're going to see out there on the race course. We've got Taylor Knibb, Kat Matthews, Imogen Simmonds, Paula Findlay, Ashleigh Gentle, Ellie Salthouse, Julie Derron, Jackie Herring, Maja Nielsen, Danielle Lewis, Els Alberts, Lotte Wilms, Hannah Berry, Els Visser, Caroline Pohle, and a whole lot of other incredible women on this start course here. There's definitely a few that we can see come through. But really, the interesting part is we saw a number of these names racing just 4 weeks ago at T100 Dubai, and some of them were looking pretty tired in Dubai. I'm curious to see how they'll turn around and come out at the 70.3 course in here.
It's at the same time, those are your top athletes too, and they're all looking to dethrone Taylor Knibb. And so regardless of the Pro Series racers, and then I think that's pretty well settled as we've discussed in the past. Pat Matthews just has to finish within like 34 minutes of the leader.
Yeah.
And she wins the Pro Series. Jackie Herring can't fall any further than 3rd overall in the Pro Series. And then it just really comes down to her and Lotte for 2nd or 3rd. And then obviously there's going to be a lot of fluctuation between 4th and 10th and in other areas there. But it comes down to the actual race results for this weekend. In this day, I think it's Taylor Knibb and everyone else trying to prove that they can still race with her. I actually believe, I know a lot of people think that Ash is going to have her day and she's going to show up and do this, and it's kind of her climate and in her area, even though New Zealand and Australia aren't that close. But I still believe in Julie Derron and the fact that she's the closest to take the throne. And I think this might be the day. I think this might be the time that she gets to get out front and pass her on the run.
Yeah, and the interesting part here, so a couple things. We're not going to have the insane conditions of Dubai. So that definitely takes a little bit of that Ashleigh Gentle, crazy heat, humidity benefit out of it. But I was pulling up Torsten Rad at Tri Rating, his predictions here, and he's usually fairly accurate with a lot of these, taking some of the previous results into account. And what he does is score different courses based on how challenging they are to really kind of dial in those times. And he has, not shockingly, Taylor Knibb at the front. And he's predicting her winning by 5.5 minutes. So he's got her at a 4:02 with a 2:15 bike compared to the next fastest being 2:21. So definitely thinking that the bike is going to be where she pulls in most of the time. And next he's got Julie Derron at 4:08. And then Kat Matthews and Ashleigh Gentle tied on times for 4:10. So it's funny because we've definitely seen Julie Derron come not out of nowhere, but she's definitely significantly increased her run over the previous few years. And she's definitely forefront of mind. But I think triathletes have a short memory. Like Ashleigh Gentle has just been so consistent with her runs over time. So while if she hadn't had that falter with the nutrition in Dubai, she would have been minutes ahead of Julie coming off. And this just gives her more time to run and more time to make up time on Taylor Knibb if she doesn't have any issues. Because we saw how she held on to Taylor Knibb and stayed within a distance of her at Dubai on the bike, which is something we haven't seen before. And now she's really going after it with a bike-focused coach. So be curious to see if they've been able to make any improvements. It's not a lot of time between when she started working with her coach or her new coach and doing this, but I think just more time on land is never a bad thing for her. More time on the run is never a bad thing for Ashleigh Gentle.
But if you say, and I agree with you, but I also think the factor here could be the swim too, because remember in Dubai, Taylor Knibb's looking over her shoulder and there's Ashleigh Gentle. That's normally not the case. And I think some of that was due to the heat and Taylor Knibb not wanting to overheat on the swim where she knew she can still push the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of getting a gap that she normally would in Dubai, I think that could be a factor here in New Zealand where she's going to actually be pushing the pace in the swim and Ash is going to try and be staying as close as possible. So I think the swim is going to make a bigger difference where Taylor Knibb's not fumbling around in T1 and catching people. She's going to be the lead bike or 2 or 3.
Be away with it.
Yeah, and that's where everyone starts to chase. So that factor there alone, now people are pushing watts that maybe they didn't plan on or want to. Whereas in Dubai, they could hold off a little bit from pushing as she was not by them yet until 10K plus in. So I think the swim will play a factor into the women's race, and for that reason alone, because it was a lot closer in Dubai with the 3 that we're talking about.
Yeah,
there's other players in this race too. I also don't believe Kat's gonna throw down a 4:10 or whatever it was that he said, because it's like she only needs 34 minutes. She's had a long season, and you want to talk about getting ready for 2025. I don't think she knows how to lose either.
She doesn't know how to do that.
Most people there don't know how to take the throttle and loosen it up, but I still think she'll know where she's at. And you got a couple loops on the run and it's right there on the water, and there's going to be plenty of people telling her where she's at, and you might see her run some slower splits coming in.
Well, and definitely your point about the swim is good because we have a lot more upfront swim power here than we had at that T100. We've got like Taylor Knibb is going to have a fast time. Caroline Pohle will be right up at front. Sarah Pretzella, Lotte Wilms, Valerie Barthelemy, like they're going to be, got Jody Stimson there too. So they're all going to be pushing the pace at the front. And if the conditions aren't as hot, you're absolutely right. They could really push that swim and make a gap on someone like a Kat Matthews, Ashleigh Gentle. We're looking at like a minute, possibly a minute more, if they do go for it and kind of break away.
I agree. I really do think this one will be a factor. I think the men's are just kind of grouped naturally together, and it's going to be who wants to tax themselves the most on the bike. But with the women, it's really about how close can you stay to Taylor coming out of the water.
Yeah, and I think what we saw last, like at the T100, is Taylor, when she's under pressure on the run, she can run faster than what we thought. Like, and that's with the T100 races before and a lot of the 70.3 stuff. She just hasn't been pushed because she's had such a massive, insane gap there. So
and if she does win this, do we actually see some emotion and like reaction? Do we see like the slamming of the tape? Do we see a mic drop or anything? Like, because everyone's coming for her at this race, more so than any race ever before, I believe.
Absolutely.
And do we think we get some emotion out of it? I still don't think she's capable of it yet. It'll come eventually. I just don't think she can reflect and talk to her team, but I don't think we're going to see any Patrick Lange type finishes out of Taylor Knibb.
She's just so calculated about it and analytical and hard on herself, right? Like, you hear all these races afterwards, she loves crazy performances. But I think to a degree, that's what it takes to be at this level and be competing across so many, like a couple different distances, and being at the top to such an extreme. Is she's definitely hard on herself, but then it makes her put in the work and analyze everything to the nth degree to make sure that she is ready to absolutely destroy the course, to the point where the question is not, will Taylor win? Will anyone come close? Is more the question.
So that reminds me too of how analytical and tough she is on herself. I don't know if you saw the T100 piece where they had a whole bunch of interviews to the top pros about what was their favorite moment or favorite race of the season.
No,
and I think it was shortly after Dubai. And I think her answer was the swim start in Dubai. And she's like, I'm an awful swim starter. I just hit the gun, and I was like, I was on the beach, I was gone, I was in the front. And it was like, that was her answer to her favorite moment of the entire series, which she never lost at any swim bike run and her, like, they were literally looking at her like, that was your favorite moment of the entire year? The run off the beach in Dubai.
Man. Yeah, no, she is just dedicated to performance and improvement and everything to, a crazy degree. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things shake up here. So we'll go the top 5 for the Ironman Pro Series right now is Jackie Herring in first, Kat Matthews in second, Maja Nielsen in third, and Lotte Wilms in fourth, Danielle Lewis in fifth. So we're going to see some shakeups. It really is interesting how Kat, like, basically just make it to the finish. And then we have a few people like Lotte Wilms. She's only got 170.3, so she's gonna get some massive points from this one and definitely jump her up likely onto the podium here, because Jackie Herring will just be replacing another best spot, so she could be moving up into second or third if she does have a great result here as well. And then I think we also have Hannah Berry, kind of the same situation. She's only 500 points, or
so she can't get to third. That's where, like, Jackie can drop to third, but I think with the 3,000 max points, so even if Hannah Berry won, she would still be short of Jackie Herring in third. So I think Hannah could get to fourth with a win or a really solid outing, but that's the best she could do. Whereas Lotte, with the extra 70.3, she's close enough where she's going to jump Maja Nielsen, no matter what, right? But Hannah Berry has got a little bit work to do to get just to fourth.
Yeah, get into that top 5 there. And you know what, I really, like we were talking about last week, and I really hope they dive into some of these calculations on course, give us some virtual rankings depending on where people are on the course, what it's going to mean for the Pro Series, and have some of that analysis, because I will say that is something T100 did very, very well in this last race, was doing that Tour de France style virtual rankings as it is right now. Here's who's going to win the series, who's on top, what the points differences are. And it would be just fun to have them do that during the Ironman series and just give us some more data to geek out on, because when you're watching these races afterwards, you can't exactly follow along in the same way. So if they can give us information on screen, it'd be a lot more fun and something to fill the time so that they're not saying the same thing over and over and over again for 3.5 hours.
All they have to do is listen to our podcast, listen to PTN, listen to Bob Babbitt. We're going to give you all of the information you need for this weekend. So tune in.
Yeah,
share this with them, please.
There we go. Oh, man. Well, okay. Let's dive into the men's side of things, because we definitely have some interesting implications from this race on the men's side. But we'll get started with the start list here.
The start list is crazy. I mean, you want to talk about firepower.
Right? Absolutely insane. Okay, so we got Rico Bogen, Mathis Margirier, Youri Keulen, Marc Dubrick, Josh Amberger, Hayden Wilde, Leo Bergere, Matt Hanson, Matthew Marquardt, Gregory Barnaby, Christian Hogenhout, Kyle Smith, Casper Stornes, Bryden Curry, Jason West, Ellie Geens. We have got a whole crazy list of talented athletes that we've seen performing across the 70.3 and the T100 series here. It is going to be the battle of the short course athletes versus the 70.3 athletes versus the Ironman athletes. It is going to be absolutely crazy to see who comes out on top. But what are your thoughts going into this one?
It's going to be interesting with those dynamics that you talk about, and the broadcast cover it. Because we've talked about this before. I mean, we've had other races where you're going to have two different stories going on. You're going to have what we believe to be the front of the race and what we believe to be the season series race as well. The simplest would be for Ironman in the broadcast would be if Matthew Marquardt goes to the front and wins, because that's all he's really got to do. Or if Barnaby goes to the front and wins. Those are locks. I think Marquardt has to win by just like over a second, whereas Barnaby wins, he's in. Like they're that close. They're like a second or so apart, even though Marquardt's 8th. But they're Ironman distance athletes. And Barnaby has done a 70.3, so he was ready for that. Marquardt's been training for 70.3, amongst everything else that he does in his life and world and saving people. And raising money and doing everything else. But I just, like I said 3 weeks ago, I mean, Barnaby surprised me and went to the front and took the race. I don't think they can do that here with the likes of Hayden Wilde and Leo Bergere. And it's going to come down to, you got to finish the race. And even if Barnaby doesn't finish the race, there's still a chance he wins the Pro Series if these other guys finish like 4 minutes or 8 minutes back behind him. So that I don't see. I don't see Matthew Marquardt finishing 8 minutes behind the leader. So I think he can get, if Barnaby has to DNF, that gives Marquardt a way in. But I just don't see Marquardt 8 minutes back in a 70.3. We've seen him break down on an Ironman run.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to talk about somebody who can push the bike with anyone? I would imagine he's going to be leading coming into T-Tip. He should be.
He should definitely have one of the fastest bike splits for sure. And that's where it's really interesting, because we definitely do have that Ironman Pro Series, but then the race in here. So it's going to be a race within a race, which has been said 100 million times, has become absolutely cliche here. But we have these short course athletes coming over to the 70.3 worlds that we haven't really seen race against the bigger names or race in any kind of event with this kind of quality and depth. We've got the Ellie Geens, Hayden Wilde. We've got Leo Bergere is going to be there. Stapley. They haven't been to some of these big 70.3 races. A lot of them have done 70.3s, but not a lot have done like the Ironman Pro Series ones. They haven't done 70.3 worlds. It's going to change.
They haven't done Kona. They haven't done Dubai.
Kona, that's a big one. Yeah. That's going to change up the dynamic completely, because they finished the Olympics and went, okay, boom, this is the next big goal. And haven't had their attention divided or done that race and recover and up and down and everything.
Yeah, I mean, these other athletes that we're talking about, Barnaby, Hogenhaug, and Marquardt, have a lot of miles on them. And that's the reason why they are here. And we're talking about them. And think about this, too. I mean, Barnaby did his, I think it was T100 Miami that he started out the season with and had a broken rib.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then so couldn't do Texas and all that. So there's Texas gone. It's like, and here we are, the guy who didn't even do Texas is leading the Ironman Pro Series with a very good cushion and only has to pay attention to two other guys, really. So that's pretty impressive. So if you have a bad start to your season, there's still a way to get to the end, too. But Marquardt and all these guys have a lot of miles on them this year, and that is another advantage that these guys have. So I can see you're like, can Marquardt stay within 8 minutes? I think he can, because he's a front pack swimmer.
Yeah.
And he's one of the top bikers out there. And so for 43 miles or 56 plus miles, 60 miles, he's going to be with these guys. And then you get into the rest of that half marathon, we'll see where he's at. But I don't know if he can run low 5 minute pace on a half marathon with these guys, but he might have a big enough lead coming in at T2 on the other Youri Keulen and Hayden Wildes and Leo Bergers that we're talking about. Because I just don't know if he wants to push Watts, he's gonna push. But
yeah,
like you said, we haven't seen these other guys in these big races with this dynamic,
and they haven't been pushed. Like that's the thing too. Like we haven't seen some of these really solid Olympic distance athletes coming over be pushed in some of these races too. So
averaging 350 watts for 2 hours.
Right. And that's the question. Will, if they're actually being pushed, have a big group around them when some of the other races they have, been off the front and knew that they could run everyone down. If they have people around them, how will they respond to that? Will they maybe push that bike a little bit too hard? We saw Kona absolutely explode on the men's race because they all tried to stick together on the bike, and it was just who's going to survive to the finish at the end. Are we going to see something like that on this course? Because there is a whole lot of kind of swim bike power at the front of this when you do have those short course athletes. But some of them haven't put in the time on the TT bike. So who knows if we see some back issues or cramping up because they haven't been able to spend that time down there.
Yeah. And I worry about somebody like Hayden Wilde. Like we've seen him have some pretty awful swims. And that for him has always been a factor. And
but
short course, we know that's a little harder because you can't get hit because of the drafting and all of that and the dynamic there. And I still think it's a factor here in the Ironman 70.3 distance too, because if he's got to push those extra watts on the bike and ride solo or ride with a smaller chase pack, you don't want to be that far behind a Marquardt. I think his swimming has come along, and I think he's had some really good swims. So I don't think it will necessarily be a factor, but I think if there's somebody who could have a bad day in the water, it's Hayden Wilde, who we could still see win this race.
Yeah, honestly, I think he's going to come out front pack with that. With how many guys are up at the front there that are kind of so close in swim ability, and he's a bad swimmer. Well, not a bad swimmer. He's not a front pack swimmer in Olympic distance all the time, but he sometimes is. Pretty much equates to 70.3. You're probably going to be a front swimmer in there. We're going to see. So I pulled up again Torsten's kind of try ratings in here. And surprisingly, he has Youri Keulen as the favorite going to this, which kind of surprised me. He doesn't have the depth of experience in it. He definitely had an incredible result over there in Las Vegas, which was a heavily weighted race when it comes to a lot of these rankings. But I can't go past Hayden Wilde. He's been on such a tear and is so good at these distances and knows New Zealand riding. Like I said, that definitely plays a good factor in there. But I think he's going to be a front pack swimmer. Might lose a couple minutes on the bike, but I see him easily running through in there. But I think that's where kind of Youri Keulen is the question, because he could potentially have a better bike ride. We know he can run the same as Hayden. He's probably going to be just off the front of the swim, maybe in a second pack, or hang on to the back of that front pack. So I think the difference will come down to a couple minutes either way on the bike and the swim in either direction. Curious to see how good it would be to see a run battle.
I think if Youri can stay close on the bike or get into that lead pack like he did in Vegas, then for sure he's a factor on the run. We've already seen that. I don't think we question that. I think the other question we haven't talked about, and we talked about it pre-show, was Kyle Smith.
Yeah.
And the hometown boy. And having a great season. It's not even just we're giving him a hometown advantage. He's had a great season. Now, the difference between Youri and Kyle that I see right now is Youri's a little fresher. And Kyle's coming off of Dubai, where he pushed himself and was in a run battle. But he is home. He is in his own bed. And he's had a phenomenal season and a finally healthy breakthrough type campaign with a lot of adrenaline when you start to get to that run course in your hometown. That's where it makes a difference. So if Kyle Smith can have the swim bike that we've seen him have, like he did in Dubai, because he was right there in Dubai coming off the bike. So if he can be in the front pack or near the front pack coming on to the run, I think he's a huge factor too. Well, I can't go with Hayden. I don't think I don't have it in me to go with him at this distance yet in this field. I think Youri or Kyle are going to take this one down.
See, and you know who we haven't talked about is previous world champion Rico Bogen.
Yeah.
We definitely saw he can handle the heat now. He can get it done.
So that's another factor in this. How much does Dubai play into this? And we're going to find out.
Take out, yeah. That's the tough part. Like, and that was such a, like, the conditions were so significant that makes a big difference. Going to the well when you're in that kind of heat in a world championship level race is something different than doing another 70.3 or
right. And you've talked about this, like what Martin did in going and racing an Ironman directly after. You might not have had that whole onset of the aftermath of doing a race in that type of conditions. But once you get a week plus out, it really starts to weigh on you as you train more and now go into a new build. And that's what these guys have done.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hard part, trying to balance that recovery while not losing a ton of fitness, and just really that central governor thing too. When you're going that hard in that kind of heat mentally, that takes a few matches. That really will burn a few, and that's hard to come back from there. So, and then we also have someone who we haven't talked about is Kasper Stornes, the Norwegian. He's definitely been up at the front, and he's such a solid kind of all-arounder there. Might lose a little bit of time on the bike, but the guy can swim, the guy can run with the best of them in there. He's going to be in the mix. You know, you can never discount that Norwegian mentality coming to some of these races. Or someone like a Leo Bergere. He is going to be right up there at the swim. Yeah. I think he might lose some time on the bike. Hasn't had a ton of time, I don't think, on the TT bike in there. But never know what you're going to see with him in the 70.3. We just don't have the depth of results for him going in.
We know these guys can run. And that's so where do they get off the bike is the biggest question. And they're definitely fresher than a lot of these other athletes that we're talking about that have been in the Ironman T100 world all year.
Just if they put in the time on the TT bike to be able to put out a steady state effort for a prolonged period of time without cramping up or having some issues there.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of money on the line this weekend. In both cases, there's a lot of notoriety on the line for sure. 70.3 world champion is still on next to Rico Bogen's name, and he's kind of carried that into a new year.
And being the first winner of the Ironman Pro Series, like that's something that's pretty cool to be able to see too, and something that'll go down a bit in the record books. Hopefully this is something that sticks around long enough for us to care about the record books for it.
But, and the $200,000 that comes with it.
I mean, that's not so shabby either. Bit of a payday.
But we've talked about other people jumping into the top 10. I mean, it goes from 200,000 down to 10,000 for 10th place. And then everything after that, 20 or 11 through 50, I think is like $5,000 each. So $10,000 up if you can get into the top 10. And that's significant money for a lot of these athletes and cover a lot of the travel that they need to do to compete and be in the Pro Series, right? That's one of the biggest expenses they have is the travel expenses and getting to a lot of these races and getting their bikes to these places. A lot of their stuff's taken care of. A lot of their gear is given to them, but the actual travel and stuff like that, and you're talking, like we talked about, 2 weeks in Kona for some of these sponsors. Well, a week and a half, 2 weeks in New Zealand is not chump change. It's why Jenna's not there at the last minute.
Yeah, I wish. Then we had Lionel Sanders, who was debating coming down or not because of the cost. Like before he had his crash, he was debating coming down or not for the crash. And that is such a bummer not to see him at this race because he is so good at 70.3. Like he is so good outside of the 70.3 World Championships. And it'd be fun to see him kind of crack that and have a good result. I was looking at last year's results, and it's funny, on the women's side, I would not be surprised to see the same results again. On the men's side, I would be shocked. So if you don't remember last year, we had Taylor Knibb win, Kat Matthews in second, and Imogen Simmonds in third. So I would not be surprised by any method. Imogen Simmonds is so strong on the bike. She could definitely get some time in there. See if she can hold on the run. But
she's been training with Kyle Smith too. So
yeah, that doesn't hurt either. Seems like they're in a good training groove. But on the men's side, we had Rico Bogen in first, Frederick Punk in second, and Jan Stratman in third. So I don't think we're going to see a redo there. But it seems this year is so much stronger just because we had the Olympics this year. So many of these short course athletes were all in and trying to get Olympic points in qualification. So we didn't see them, and they're going to, whether they win or not, absolutely have an effect on the race and how it all goes down.
I agree. And it's, I can't wait to find a way to watch it all.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's make some predictions in here going into the race.
I forgot about Imogen too.
Yeah, right? She has such a solid bike. It's just a case of hanging on that run. Solid, like she'll be right at the front on the swim. Should be good.
So the top 5 or so in the female race is probably going to come out of Dubai as well. Like they're all, right? They were all at Dubai.
Yeah.
If
So
you think
kind of
about
got
Taylor,
Knibb,
Julie,
Derron,
Ash,
Matthews,
Kat,
Paula.
was
Yeah.
Imogen?
Imogen is, yeah. How are they like?
So with that said, we might see some upsets if we're talking about the way we're talking in the men's side.
No, true. Seeing how deep they had to go there, and how they recovered from that travel too, because that is not easy travel for almost anyone, really.
Yeah.
Let's go podium. Who do you think will be on the podium in the women's side here? And it's a tough one.
Julie, Ash, Taylor. Taylor hobbles in with the somehow she bonks on the run. Something goes wrong. Maybe there's a mechanical on the. Hey, no, we haven't even talked about mechanicals. We haven't talked about penalties for littering or anything that could go wrong with all the bumps that they got to ride through. So
that's a good point. Yeah,
there is a factor there in knowing how to tie everything down and making sure you're not getting. I mean, they're all pieces of the game, and that could be a factor. So I'm not going to slay off of that, but I think this is the day that Taylor Knibb does get caught, and it will be Julie Derron, and Ash finishes second again. So we've now got a new 3-headed beast of Julie, and Ash and Taylor Knibb. I think Kat would normally be in this if this was a little bit more competitive for her, and she needed to be in the top 5 to win the Pro Series. I think you would see Kat in this. It's so hard to turn that engine on when you know you have $200,000 waiting for you just by getting to the finish line, literally, with a 34. I mean, she can finish inside of 30 minutes of Taylor Knibb or whoever wins this, Julie Derron.
I was going to say the same names, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I think Taylor Knibb still takes it. I think Ashleigh Gentle is going to be there till the bitter end. And let's go Kat Matthews holds on for a third in there. Just because she won't be satisfied with just winning the Pro Series.
And she can have a great bike.
Man, I think what she's proven is her resiliency over these races. Even like going in tired racing week after week after week, she's still right there. Like you just can't shake her.
And her swim has come a long way too.
Yeah, absolutely. She should be, around that Ashleigh Gentle kind of level in there. If she has a good swim, which would be good. I want to call it Paula Findlay, but she just seems like her head's just not quite in it at this. I know it sounds like she was kind of sick going into Dubai and wasn't feeling 100%, but I don't know, not seeing that excitement.
I just haven't seen her flip a switch all year. Like she's won some races. She's had some great races, but it's like once she's in 4th or 5th, there's no switch that pushes to that next level. And she's been around for a long time. It's amazing that she's still doing what she's doing. And now she's got the whole TT, and not TTL, to the actual like TT racing life that she's got potential at too. So I agree with you. I think she's going to be in the race. I just don't think we're going to see her push on the run. And that's kind of where it's been. I think she has it in her. I just don't know if she wants it that badly. And she's had a long season and she's going to finish with some money again, probably.
Yeah, definitely. Across a couple. Okay, on the men's side, what do you think we're going to see happen here? That's a tough one.
You can go first this time.
Okay. I think we're going to see Hayden Wilde. I think he's going to take the win in here. And I think we're going to go for a New Zealand double with Cal Smith. And then, I want to say Ellie Salthouse, but I think that course in T100 really suited him. Might not be the same here. Let's go Leo Bergere. I think he's just so familiar racing with Hayden, being at the front there, that, so he could have a good day out there at the 70.3 and really make it bang.
All right. I'm going to change up my thought here. I think I've seen Marquardt's been there for a while. And I think, and there's nobody smarter than him in this industry. And I really think $200,000 for him would mean a boatload of potential for his future, because he doesn't want to give up on his future of studying and research and saving lives. So that's huge for him. And I can't even imagine how much of that he would actually donate on top of that. But I think Kyle Smith is going to take the top step. But Marquardt's going to be there, and Kyle's going to get him towards the end. So as we've seen Marquardt in the past take the lead into the run, and all of a sudden that left arm or that right arm starts to flail a little bit more, which I start to see more and more in runners in general. Like it's like the Marquardt is getting more popular.
Yeah.
But I think Marquardt will hold on for second, and Hayden and Leo will be battling out for the third spot. And I don't think Barnaby and the rest of them get close enough, and Marquardt takes down the season series.
Ooh, big shout there.
From 8th place to 1st in the last day.
Right? That would be an epic jump. And you know what? I don't think it's quite at the podium that Ironman was expecting going into it, but there's almost a little bit poetic that Patrick Lange is not going to win this series not being at the race. That'd be a little bit anticlimactic, like skipping one of the world championships and still winning the series overall doesn't quite have the same.
And he's not going to be in the hot seat that we wanted.
I know,
waiting at the finish line.
It'd be fun to have a Tour de France hot seat watching the race go down.
But I think Marquardt's going to be close enough to hold on for the overall. I think that, and this is the difference between the men's race and the women's race. Kat doesn't have to.
No.
Marquardt and Barnaby and Hogenhaug, they got a red line.
Full gas.
And I think being Ironman athletes, they will have that capability. And the fact that Marquardt did not race 2 weeks ago is going to be the difference.
See, I almost wonder if they're not at the front because they're just watching each other. Like kind of once they kind of come with him, because they need like a second.
Yeah, but Marquardt needs a lot more than that to jump to the top.
Yeah, to get to the top of the series in there.
So now you're talking 85,000 or 200,000. The same conversation that we had about Patrick Lange. How bad does Marquardt want that jump? Because he did show up.
Don't see that happening, but it'd be fun to see that go down. I hope that they show, if they're not at the front and Marquardt and Barnaby are kind of racing each other, I hope we see some of that. Because that would be an absolute shame if they are just kind of watching each other and like playing off of one another if we don't see any of it until the end of the
I don't
race.
think you're going to see the high five from Barnaby to Hogenhaug that we saw a couple weeks ago. But it will be nice to see on the run.
Absolutely. Well, I think that is us for tonight. We are going to be watching all of the social media and interviews and everything going in to see where everyone's head is at, because there is an epic race going on this weekend. Definitely check out some of those ones Josh mentioned, especially Babbitt Bill. He gets all of the insight, and we'll just see.
Maybe that's where Fede was. Fede's doing his breakfast with Bob. That's why he couldn't join us tonight.
There we go. Well, late for breakfast. I mean, it's a good day if you're having breakfast. Yeah. No, he's enjoying everything that's in New Zealand and getting his head in the game for race day. So we wish him absolutely all the best out there on this weekend too, because he has had a tough start to the season, but we're ready to see him rip it this weekend and have some fun.
Huge day for all the age groupers too, who haven't had as long of a season as some of these other pros for sure. But they're there and they're ready to go for the World Championships too.
Absolutely. Well, we will break it all down next week and go through everything that happened. Until then, definitely give us a follow on social media at Another Triathlon Podcast. And we've got everything on YouTube now if you want to see us chatting about everything.
And we got a whole new class of triathletes coming in for next season, signing up for their first races. Shoot our link to them.
Absolutely. Well, have a great night, Josh, and we'll see you next week.
It's good. See you guys.